Two guys sit at the same barbecue every summer, same neighborhood, same age, both 42. One of them makes $95,000 a year as a regional sales manager. The other makes $71,000 as a high school teacher. If you asked anyone at that barbecue which one is going to retire rich, every single person would point at the sales manager. Higher income, nicer car, bigger house. Case closed, right? Except by the time they're both 60, the teacher has almost triple the net worth of the sales manager. Same barbecue, same zip code, same decades of working, wildly different outcomes. And it has almost nothing to do with how much either of them earned. Here's the twist nobody explains to you. Whether you're rich by 60 was never really about your salary. It's about 6 specific numbers, and almost nobody actually checks them. Not your accountant, not your HR department, not even most financial advisors, unless you specifically ask. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time reading financial research, so you don't have to. If you've ever laid in bed wondering whether you're actually on track or just quietly falling behind while pretending everything's fine, stick around because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 6 numbers determine your future, and more importantly, whether yours are pointing in the right direction. Hit subscribe if that sounds like something you need right now, because most people find out these numbers were bad at 58, which is exactly 2 years too late to fix anything. Let's get one thing straight before we start. This video has nothing to do with your job title, your salary, or how impressive your LinkedIn headline sounds. Income is what everyone obsesses over, and income is almost worthless as a predictor of whether you'll actually be financially secure at 60. What actually predicts it is quieter, less exciting, and almost invisible from the outside, which is exactly why the sales manager at that barbecue never saw it coming. Think about how strange that actually is for a second. We size people up financially based on the one number that turns out to matter the least. We assume the person with the better title, the newer car, the bigger house is automatically winning at money, when in reality none of those things show up anywhere on a balance sheet that actually predicts retirement outcomes. They're just the visible layer, the part designed to be seen. The 6 numbers we're about to walk through are the invisible layer, the part nobody sees until decades later when the results show up all at once, impossible to ignore. Number 1 is your savings rate, not your savings account balance, your savings rate. This is the percentage of your income you're actually putting away every single month, and it's the single most powerful predictor of long-term wealth that exists. Here's why it matters more than income. A person earning $60,000 a year who saves 20% is putting away $12,000 annually. A person earning $150,000 who saves 4% is putting away exactly $6,000. The lower earner is building wealth twice as fast as someone making more than double their salary. Financial researchers consistently find that savings rate explains far more variation in retirement outcomes than income does, because income tells you what's coming in, but savings rate tells you what's actually sticking around. If you don't know your savings rate off the top of your head right now, that's usually the first sign something's off. People who are actually on track know this number the way they know their own birthday. It's not that they're financial geniuses. It's that they treat it as a vital sign, something you check regularly, rather than something you vaguely hope is fine. Number 2 is your investment growth rate, meaning what your money is actually earning while it sits there. This sounds technical, but stay with me because the difference here is enormous. Money sitting in a checking account or a low-interest savings account is barely growing, maybe 0.5% to 1% a year, which after inflation means it's actually losing value. Money invested in a diversified index fund has historically returned somewhere around 7 to 10% annually over long stretches of time. Here's what that gap actually costs you. $50,000 sitting in cash for 20 years might grow to $55,000. $50,000 invested at 7% for 20 years grows to roughly $193,000. Same starting amount, same 20 years. a difference of over $130,000, just from where the money physically sits. This is the number that quietly separates people who feel like they're doing everything right from people who actually see results, because plenty of disciplined savers keep their money parked somewhere safe and comfortable instead of somewhere it can actually grow. They're doing the hard part, the actual saving, and then losing most of the benefit because the money never leaves the starting line. Number 3 is your debt-to-income ratio, and this one is brutal because it works against you in 2 directions at once. Every dollar you're paying toward debt is a dollar that can't be invested, and it's also a dollar that's often accruing interest working against you instead of compound interest working for you. Financial planners generally consider anything above 36% of your gross income going toward debt payments a red flag. And once you cross the 40% mark, wealth building becomes almost mathematically impossible, no matter how much you earn. Here's the part that stings. That sales manager from the barbecue was paying $1,100 a month across a car loan, credit cards, and a home equity loan he took out for a kitchen remodel. That's over $13,000 a year that never had the chance to compound. Run that same $13,000 through an investment account earning 7% for 18 years, and it becomes well over $400,000. He didn't lose that money to bad luck. He lost it to a debt-to-income ratio he never actually calculated. And here's the part that makes this number so dangerous. It doesn't feel painful month to month. Minimum payments feel manageable right up until you add up what 2 decades of those payments actually cost you in money that never got the chance to grow. Number 4 is your net worth trajectory, which is different from your net worth total. Most people obsess over the current number in their net worth, but the trajectory, meaning the direction and speed it's moving, matters infinitely more. Someone with a net worth of $40,000 that's growing by 15% a year is in a dramatically better position than someone with $200,000 that's been completely flat for the last 5 years. The flat number tells you nothing about momentum, and momentum is what compounds. Here's a quick gut check. If your net worth today is roughly the same as it was 3 years ago, that's not stability, that's stagnation wearing a disguise. Wealth isn't a snapshot, it's a slope, and most people have never once looked at their own slope. They check their bank balance the way you'd check the weather, a quick glance in the moment, never the multi-year pattern that actually tells you whether you're headed somewhere or just standing still while the calendar moves. Number 5 is your retirement account contribution consistency, and this is where the teacher from that barbecue quietly crushed the sales manager without anyone noticing. The sales manager contributed to his 401k in good years and skipped it during tight months, which felt reasonable in the moment. The teacher contributed the exact same percentage every single month for 18 years straight, rain or shine, raise or no raise. Consistency beats intensity almost every single time in investing because missing contributions doesn't just mean you missed that month's deposit. It means that money never got the chance to compound for the remaining years. A 20-year-old this month, $300 invested consistently every month for 30 years at 7% growth becomes roughly $353,000. But if you skip just 1 month out of every 4, meaning you're only actually consistent 75% of the time, you don't lose 25% of the final number, you lose closer to a third of it, because the gaps happen to compound too, just in the wrong direction. Consistency isn't a personality trait some people are lucky enough to have. It's a system, and systems can be built by anyone willing to set one up once and then leave it alone. Number 6, and this is the one almost nobody talks about, is your lifestyle inflation rate, meaning how fast your spending rises every time your income rises. This is the silent killer that explains why so many high earners end up with surprisingly little to show for it. The typical pattern looks like this. Someone gets a $10,000 raise, and instead of banking that increase, their spending quietly rises by $8,000 or $9,000 within a year. New car, nicer apartment, more dining out, a slightly better vacation. None of it feels reckless in the moment. Each individual decision feels earned and reasonable. But the net effect is that their savings rate, remember that's number one, stays completely flat their entire career no matter how much they earn, because their spending is always chasing their income like a dog chasing its own tail. The people who actually build wealth aren't the ones who never get raises. They're the ones who bank the majority of every raise before their lifestyle has a chance to catch up. It's a strange kind of discipline, celebrating good news quietly instead of loudly. But it's the difference between a raise that actually changes your future and a raise that just changes your monthly expenses. So here's what actually happened at that barbecue, laid out plainly. The sales manager had a higher income, but a savings rate under 5%, money sitting mostly in cash instead of invested, a debt-to-income ratio pushing 40%, a net worth that had been flat for years, retirement contributions that started and stopped depending on his mood, and lifestyle inflation that ate every single raise he ever got. The teacher had a lower income, but a savings rate above 18%, money invested consistently in low-cost index funds, almost no consumer debt outside a mortgage, a net worth climbing steadily every single year, retirement contributions on autopilot that never missed a month in 18 years, and a lifestyle that barely changed even as her salary slowly increased over time. By 60, the teacher isn't just comfortable, she's genuinely wealthy. The sales manager is still working, still stressed, and still telling himself that next year is the year he finally gets serious about saving. Here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all 6 of these numbers. None of them require a high income. None of them require some genius investment strategy or a lucky stock pick. They require you to actually know where you stand right now, today, instead of assuming you're probably fine because you have a good job and a decent bank balance. Most people go their entire working life without ever calculating a single one of these 6 numbers, which means most people are essentially flying blind toward retirement and hoping it works out. If this is hitting a little close to home right now, that's actually a good sign, because it means you still have time to do something about it. The people who end up like the sales manager aren't people who didn't care about money, they're people who never sat down and actually ran these 6 numbers until it was too late to change the outcome. Before we get to the last 2, if you're finding this useful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to hear it. And if you've ever thought about building a channel that breaks down money the way this one does, we walk through exactly how inside our community. Links in the description, no pressure, it'll be there when you're ready. Now here's how you actually turn these 6 numbers into a plan instead of just 6 things to feel anxious about. Start with your savings rate first, because it's the easiest to calculate and it drives everything else. Take whatever you're currently investing or saving every month, divide it by your gross monthly income, and you have your real number. If it's under 10%, that's your first fix, and it doesn't have to happen overnight. Moving from 5% to 8% this year and 8 to 12% next year compounds into a massive difference over a decade. Far more than trying to jump to 20% immediately and burning out in 3 months. Next, check where that money is actually sitting. If a meaningful chunk of your long-term savings is parked in a regular savings account, earning less than 2%, that's not safety, that's a slow leak. Money you won't need for 5 or more years generally belongs somewhere it can actually grow, which for most people means a diversified, low-cost index fund inside a retirement account, where it can compound largely untouched by taxes along the way. Then tackle your debt-to-income ratio with intention instead of dread. You don't need to pay off every debt overnight, but you do need to know the number, because you can't fix what you refuse to measure. Anything with a double-digit interest rate, meaning most credit cards, deserves aggressive attention before you accelerate investing further, since guaranteed double-digit debt payoff almost always beats uncertain market returns in the short term. For your net worth trajectory, the fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Check it every 6 months. Same day, same method, write the number down. You're not looking for a big number right away, you're looking for the slope. If it's trending up consistently, even slowly, you're doing the hard part correctly, and the rest is just time. If it's flat or dropping, that's your early warning system doing exactly its job, catching the problem years before it becomes a crisis. Retirement contribution consistency comes down to one decision: automation. The moment your contributions depend on you remembering, feeling motivated, or having a good month, consistency eventually breaks down, usually quietly and gradually enough that you don't even notice until years have passed. Automatic contributions set once and left alone outperform manual good intentions almost every single time, not because automated investors are smarter, but because they removed the one variable that actually causes most people to fall behind: themselves. And finally, lifestyle inflation. The single most effective tool here is deciding in advance, before the raise even happens, what percentage of any future income increase goes straight to savings before it ever touches your regular spending. Even committing to bank half of every future raise, while still enjoying the other half, is enough to permanently break the cycle that quietly kept the sales manager broke despite a six-figure income. None of these 6 fixes require you to earn more money. That's actually the most encouraging part of this whole video. Wealth by 60 was never reserved for the highest earners in the room. It's reserved for the people who actually looked at these 6 numbers honestly, adjusted the ones that needed adjusting, and then let 2 or 3 decades of consistency do the rest of the work for them. The teacher at that barbecue didn't have a secret. She had 6 numbers she happened to be managing correctly, mostly without even realizing it, while everyone around her was staring at the wrong signals entirely. So here's the real question this video was actually asking the whole time. Forget your job title, forget your salary, forget the car in your driveway. If you sat down right now and calculated your actual savings rate, your actual debt-to-income ratio, and your actual net worth trajectory over the last 3 years, would you like what you saw? Because by 60, one of 2 things will be true. Either you'll be the person other people quietly wonder how they did it, or you'll be the one still telling yourself that next year is finally the year. The 6 numbers don't lie, and unlike your salary, they were never about how much you make. They were always about what you actually do with it. 6 numbers checked honestly once a year for the next couple of decades. That's genuinely the whole plan.